Welcome. This is Professor Ryan Evans of Columbia College, and we are going to be doing History 277, attached to the Scotland Study Abroad program for Columbia College. So today we are going to look at our course today. So it's Freedom, the History of Scotland, its Independence and Recognition for Spring 2016. I'm very excited to go on the trip with you guys, see some castles, learn about William Wallace and learn about Robert the Bruce and all the kings and all the backstabbing and the murders that happened. It's a pretty interesting story of Scotland. This course is going to trace the roots of Scotland as it struggles against England for freedom and independence from England. They follow the paths like Robert the Bruce, as I mentioned earlier, William Wallace, and they struggle against the English crown, and they keep butting heads again and again. We're exploring Scotland's role in the English Civil War and its flourishing into the Enlightenment with Adam Smith and Walter Scott and James Bronswell. So to begin with, you got the two textbooks. I kind of cut it down to you guys just for two. My source materials are over 600-page books, probably about 10 sources, so you guys got life easy. We're doing Maclaren, Fitzroy, it's Scotland, A Concise History, published in 1970, and then we got James Mackay, William Wallace, Mainstream Publishing in Edinburgh in 1995. If you wanted to go above and beyond, there's two books I would recommend. It would be How the Scots Invented the Modern World by Arthur Herman, 2001. And then also, there is a book published by Sean Connery about being a Scot. And that is a good, he was the James Bond, original James Bond, and it's a good read, you know. So, anyways, let's dive right in. The course objectives for this course is obviously to derive meaning from Scottish culture and lineage and background in juxtaposition of the culture of lineage of the English. We want to identify the significance and impact of key historical Scottish individuals and how affected that development of Scotland. And then also identify key sources of tension and interaction between Scotland and England because, you know, it's a pretty feudal rivalry between the two countries throughout the entire time. So here we go. We're also going to be tracing the Scottish nobility and the background and plans of how much they differ from the British monarchy. We're just going to start out with our first lesson, which is going to be Barbarians of the North. So here we go. If you want to follow along, you can bring up my PowerPoint presentation. It's got basically the outline of what we're going to be covering today. But if you want to take a look at the first people of Scotland, we're talking about circa 7000 BC. So a long time ago. The English-born James Hutton in 1726 to 1797 is now universally recognized as the father of modern genealogy. And if you don't know what genealogy is, it's the study of hereditaries and family trees to trace back. And a lot of the royals do this. It's very popular. So it's widely known that precisely 4,004 years ago, his book Theory of the Earth in 1788 long predated Darwin's On the Origin of Species. Well, he traced a lot of the old ancient Celtics and Scottish, early ancestors of Scotland that inhabited the island. So, so we have the we look at the map of Scotland, and as my past students know, I'm big on geography. Geography is very important. It tells us the lay of the land and the way that the people, cultures, and sociology constrapulates on that. So when we look at the history of Scotland, you can look at the top part. There's lots of lakes or nesses, lochs, which are kind of interspersed, like jagged, almost like fjords, like Norway, but not as more defined. That are all these inlets from the sea that surrounds it, and it's very craggy. Lots of hills, lots of mountains, very, very unhospitable terrain, very rugged, and also very green and fertile. And there's a lot of agriculture that could have been done in the south part. So we got Aberdeen, we got Caithness, Sutherland, and Ross and Carmarthen from the north. It goes down to Inverness and Aberdeen. Angus and Perth, these are different regions. Fife, which has Falkland. Big Battle of William Wallace is in Falkland. We got Edinburgh is the capital of Scotland. Agrel, Lanyark, Ayr, Kirkton, Wigtown, and Dumfries, and it comes down to the British border. So we want to bring up the prehistoric stone circles. So this is kind of like Stonehenge, but it's up in the Scottish areas. The Maze How near Stormis on Ochernary is a stone-built chambered tomb. Okay, so it's based upon astronomy. Astronomy was used for when to plant crops, and it was very important to know what the calendar day was so that they can go about their every life. So the tomb was designed so that the sun shines directly down in the carefully aligned entrance passageway, flooding the main chamber with light on the winter solstice. There we go. So Skara Bay is also on Orkney, is an ancient stone-built settlement with houses connected by covered passages. So this kind of dates kind of to the Romans, but more of a Celtic feel. They're more stone laden and more crude, almost kind of cave-like, as you can see, dating back to 3200 BC. So this is before Christ. The houses are remarkably civilized with stone seats. And in drawing rooms and places where they would gather, and they'd have crude kitchens, which basically was a pit in the ground, which they used. So, okay, so now we're going to go into the Iron Age. The Iron Age took place in Scotland around 700 BC, and the native population traded and adopted new technologies of forging metal and iron to make tools, weapons, what have you. So the Celtic knotwork and decoration, which is still admired today, began in the period of the Celts. And they like to decorate a lot. The Celts were very big into decoration with metalworks and lattices, and they wore colorful clothes and jewelry to go along it, which kind of defines their culture. The Romans are called the tribes of the north, Caledoni. The name of their land was Caledonia, which was seen in the early times of the of that area. So the early background of the Picts, that's Picts, known as the Painted People, were one of the Celtic tribes who inhabited Scotland. So here we go. Looking at these Picts, historians think that they painted or tattooed their bodies and carved standing stones, some of which can be seen today. This sort of left thing. We have very, very little bit of remnants. It's kind of, archaeology is kind of not an exact science. We kind of have to extrapolate what we find with the broken, tattered pieces around things. It's a tough thing. But people play detective, and they work on these different, remnants of shards of different of these past cultures, and we come up with ways to figure out and explain how they lived, and try to figure out what kind of ways that they lived. This is all kind of the historical method we can use by inferencing of the small matters of this. So the written word there was not much written word at this type of period, but we can look at kind of just ingest what was going to happen around there by seeing these stone structures and seeing the seats and seeing the layout of these different areas. So we can look into the Picts. Left little evidence behind, but many towns in Scotland still have the pitched names like Pitaween and Pitlarky. And I know I'm butchering this. I don't have a Scottish brog. My two languages are English and French, so Scottish is a little much of a stretch for me. So carry on. I mean, just bear with me. In the year of 81 AD, so now we're going from 700 to 400 to 81. This is after death of Christ. So to give you a little bit of backgrounds for those of you who were unlucky enough to not go on my Italy trip, and we did in that class in the 277 for the historical military of the ancient world of Rome. We know that Rome started to expand into areas, and they adopted to the customs of other things and impressed their way, brought coinage and trade and all that other stuff. Well, believe it or not, the Romans built boats and went to England and left the European continent. So we look at that. In the year 81 AD, the Emperor Tacitus of Rome, who was the governor of the Roman province of Britain, invaded southern Scotland with the 9th Roman Legion. So Roman legions were thousands and thousands of troops. They were super well organized. They set up camps. They even brought their wives with them so they could stay, and children, so that they can colonate the areas, and so they were away for so long. So then now in the 121 AD, so we go a couple, we jump forward in time from 81 AD to 121 AD. Emperor Hadrian. So the Hadrian, we hear the Hadrian Wall. So this is what we're talking about. Visited Britain. So the Emperor of Rome, big deal, going all the way across Europe and then on a boat. So imagine that. We don't have trains or airplanes. It takes a long time for him to do that, months and months and months. So, anyways, He visited Britain and ordered a wall built from Salonier and Tyne in order to control and protect his northernmost forts. So we see that. And in 141 AD, Aurelius Urbanius became planted as the governor of Britain, and he built a wall much farther north into Scotland called the Antonine Wall. So you got the southern part of Scotland got the Hadrian Wall. And then you go up a little north, and they were like, well, we want more land, so we're going to build another wall. And this one's called the Antonian Wall, so we can see that. So if you go to the PowerPoint, and you see one of the slides here, you can see my map. And you can see Hadrian's Wall on the bottom, right down between the Irish and the North Sea. And then you can see right at the inlet of Farth, you can see the Antonian Wall. And see the probable extent of, we're not completely sure how much higher that the Romans pushed, but we're thinking they pushed above Edinburgh and up a little higher. So we can see in AD 970s Roman defensive zone. See, they were constantly attacked because the Scots were not happy to have these Roman invaders, pushing on their land, and they don't like that. So we're going to look at that. So Hadrian's Wall. Hadrian's Wall is in year 81 AD, as Tacitus was the governor of Roman province of Britain. He invaded southern Scotland. And I'm talking like killing and maiming and raping people and to assert them to their will. So, there's always two sides to a coin. So the Romans were saying, hey, we're taking this land and we're going to, colonize it. And the Scots see them as enemies and coming in and taking their land and telling them what to do, and they don't like it. I mean, they've been doing the same thing for ages, and now these Roman guys come in and kind of do their thing. So, okay, so 121 AD, Emperor Hadrian visited Britain. He ordered a wall built from Soloane to Tyne in order to control and protect his northern forts, because before they just had loosely legion encampments, so the little tents and stuff, and so those were super easy for the Scots to come in and attack and kill people. So they needed a wall, and so they built a wall. And then what they got was the Hadrian Wall. So 141 AD, Aurelius Urbanius, governor of Britain, builds a wall much farther north deep into Scotland called the Antonian Wall. So, okay. We've got some beautiful pictures of the leftovers of the wall, and I'm sure we're going to make site visits there on the trip. Okay. So you can see how they're built of stone. Put together in close-knit areas there. You see the rugged, rolling green pastured hills. All right, so, okay. When you guys are done looking at the pictures, let's go on to the resistance against the wall. So, okay, so there's a couple different tribes of Caledonian, which is, the early Scots, and they resisted. They resisted against the Roman invasion. They did guerrilla tactics and attacking. And they tried a number of tactics to keep the peace in the north. The Romans just wanted to keep peace, but the Scots wouldn't have it. So they built two walls, as we said earlier. Antonian Wall, which stretched from the Forth to the Clyde, and then the Hadrian's Wall. I mean, the Firth. Yeah, Firth and Clyde. Both massive undertakings and designed to keep the fierce tribes of Caledonia out of Roman Britain. So, okay. So, the Romans conquer, and then they're like, enough with this, bail. So the Romans conquer, and then they throw away. So summer of 83 AD, Roman chieftain Caligus won a battle in the hills of Moroclef in the Battle of Mons Gripius. So it was a bloody battle. He lost a lot of men, and a lot of the morale went down. They're like, why the heck are we in Scotland? We're so far away from Rome. We're so far away from our friends and our family. So why the heck are we still here? It's kind of like, you can see parallels today of why is America still in Afghanistan kind of thing. So, there's a lot of parallels between that, and it was very unpopular to be up in Scotland for back home, and so the Roman forts were established in Stirling as the headquarters of the entire region, and was governed by Nunus Julius Agricola. He was so this was a governor. So the Romans were very societally organized. So you see that you have these governors and chieftains and people that are taking care of business and the day-to-day operations of these forts. People were living there, and they had to have societies and laws and trade and gathering of food and stockpile and logistics and all that different stuff. So Agricola had won a foothold in 84 and was preparing to advance further and further north, but he was recalled by the head of the Roman Empire, which was overextended its empire and supply lines. So Okay. So Rome shifts its attitude towards Scotland for a last push. It's facing trials on its main borders from the German tribes, so it shifted from an offensive expansion and shifted to a defensive. So it was just like, okay, guys, we have this land. Let's just hold what we got and stop expanding, because they were losing men, they were losing goods, they were losing food, and the Scots were just slaughtering Romans left and right. So the walls were reinforced, and trade from the forts were kept open, so the Rome reassessed its priorities in protecting the city of Rome itself. As we know, at this time, the Visigoths and all these different factions were coming in, and at the gates of Rome, enemy at the gates kind of situation. So, you know, the Scottish forts became less and less important as time went on. The indigenous Scottish population were wreaking havoc on the legionary troops far from home, with a guerrilla warfare tactics and complete knowledge of the tactical use of jagged hills. Right, so. This is a map that I made, so, you know, I use paintbrush. You can see the Hadrian's Wall and Antonian Wall, and then you can see the yellow shaded area is how far they pushed. And then from that yellow shaded area, they retreated back to the red line in Edinburgh and Glasgow. So the Hadrian's Wall is actually a little bit further south from the Scottish-British border. All right, so abandon the wall. So that's what they did. The Romans abandoned their wall in 208 AD. Roman garrisons came under yet another round of attacks from the burly Scotsmen. Waves of indigenous guerrilla attacks. It was brutal. Lots and lots of Roman soldiers, and a lot of the leadership were killed and slaughtered. Emperor Severus experienced distinctive Roman victories, but these were short-lived. Ilia and Euphrates and tried to build a naval base at Caermond so that they could push further north to get to the heart of the problem. But the opposition of his plan went out, and then he died. So there was a leadership vacuum there, and they're like, what the hell are we going to do? Our leader's gone. So after the failure of Severus' campaign, the Antonian Wall was just abandoned. So they said, okay, we'll pack up our stuff, and we'll move back down to the Hadrian Wall. So, all right. So the Hadrian Wall actually held out strong. I mean, because they reinforced their troops, and they had more troops because they don't have two walls to deal with. They just have one, so they consolidated their efforts. And the Romans took up defensive positions and experienced relative peace for about 100 years. So for a whole century, there was peace, peace, peace. There's trade. There was families being born. There was so the Romans were still there. So now the combination of Saxon pirates crossing across the North Sea and successful Scottish raids across the wall, the Romans' resolve finally crumbled. So in 100 years later, in 430 AD, after death of Christ, Romans evacuated and evicted from the wall. So no more Romans. So the Scots are free. Well, are they? Well, they got England to contest with later, but we'll get to that later in this thing. So starting out, there are 4 early races of Scotland. Okay? So we got the Picts, P-I-C-T-S, the Britons, B-R-I-T-O-N-S, the Teutonic Anglo-Saxons, which is the T-E-U-T-O-N-I-C, A-N-G-L-O-S-A-X-O-N-S, and my favorite, the Scots, the C-S-C-O-T-S, right? So, all right, so the Picts, I'm just going to break this down for you, are most powerful Celtic European migrants, okay? The Britons, well, they were the Celts controlling the lower areas. You know, they were farming, they had establishments all over there, okay? Teutonic Anglo-Saxons to the east came from the Rhine and the Baltic. And the Scots were the warlike Celts. So they were the ones that were in the clans, and they were brutal, and they used the guerrilla war attacks, and they gave the Romans an absolute headache as they were slaughtering their guys left and right, and things like that. So the Scots were a warlike Celtic race from Northern Ireland. So, okay, they came from Ireland, then they came over by boats, and said, hey, Scotland looks a lot nicer, so we'll set here, and we have these Romans to deal with, so, which gave their name to Alban and became Scotland. So, yeah. So the early Dunadd was the year of, we're going to move down to the 500 AD. I know we're covering in hundreds of years super quickly, but that's kind of how it goes in history, because there's big jumps and leaps. So, year 500 AD, Fergus MacCarach
And his two brothers, Angus and Lauren, led the newest Scottish invasion from Ireland to put up a Scottish stronghold in Dunod. So, believe it or not, there was Christian missionaries that started to trickle in and led by one of the first, St. Oran. He died by the plague of 548, so 48 years later, he died by the plague. You know, the bubonic plague, you know, that rat one that killed off almost all of Europe? Yeah, that one. Okay, so 563, St. Columba arrived and set up churches in the mainland of Scotland. So yeah, St. Columba is in Columbia College. No connection there, but it's just kind of funny. All right. So Columbia was also, you know, it's just a missionary. He set up churches, and Columbia penetrated up north and rumored to quell the monster at Loch Ness. This is where the Loch Ness monster myth comes in. You know, Nessie, that big sea monster that swims around hypothetically. People take pictures, kind of like a Bigfoot, but you know, in Scotland it's like a dragon that swims in the water. Okay, anyways. So winning over pagan priests to Christianity. So these pagan priests were like making sacrifices to Loch Ness and all these weird stuff, and you know, sacrificing goats and all these weird different things. So he's like, okay, you guys are pagans, let's make you Christians. So he tried and kept on trying, and you know, it's big kind of an uphill battle. So 579, Dunod was a political capital and a strongly formed Christian church. So the church was established, and they were successful. And we got Kenneth MacLaren, King of Scots. So I know there's a lot of text here, but I just wanted to have some primary documents on your PowerPoint, so bear with me. In 839, an interesting battle took place. Some Picts were fighting the rebellious Scots under Alpine and Grumman House. A large army of Norsemen came up from the rear. Though Alpine was killed, his head was impaled by the Picts. So, you know, they impaled his head on a stake. Just kind of show the other Scots whose business. So kind of thing. The Pictish army now turned to face the Norsemen and were destroyed in a wild pitched battle. They had all these kind of improvised weapons, you know, these big cleavers and pikes and swords and big broadswords and things like that. So the Picts not only lost to the Norsemen, but they were destroyed almost to the very number. So they were decimated, absolutely. All their very, very few of them left after the battle. Igorham, the last king of the Picts, died with them, and now there was no Pictish leader to oppose the Scots. So the Scots were warlike, and they're like, "Arg, we can take over." So with the Norsemen took part in the battle between the Picts and the Scots, that did not involve the Norsemen, is really easily explained. So the Norsemen believed to die in the battle was a sure way of entering Valhalla, and great warriors' reward is Asgard. So these are Norse things. You can hear these from like the Norse gods, you know, from like Norway, Denmark, Sweden. You know, the Scandinavian countries kind of have that Norse mythology, and the other ones were Christianity. So kind of a battle of religious cultures there. All right. So, the Asgard became a pagan belief, and the Vikings showed up and had no fear of dying in contact because, you know, they're rough Vikings. And contrary to belief, the Vikings did not have horns on their helmets. Because, why would you? That's like a target, you know. People could see those horns from for miles away, and, you know, it makes you a target. And it's just unpractical, so that is a myth. So, the Vikings, with no horns on their helmets, came in, and they fought and they had a big battle between the Picts and the Scots. So the Picts were like, "Okay, hang on a minute. These Viking dudes just showed up, so we're gonna help the Scots, even though we hate each other, and we'll fight these Vikings off." So the Scots were losing and promptly attacked the winners, the Picts. Besides the last Pictish kings dying in the battle, so did the Scots King Alpin also died. So, you know, those Vikings are pretty brutal and are king killers, so king slayers. If you guys watch Game of Thrones. Anyways, I digress. Kenneth and Hardley, son of Scots, slaying King Alpine and avenged his father's death by taking the remaining territory for the Picts. So, this land is ours, we have a flag, kind of thing. His ascendancy to King of Scots Picts was not a peaceful one, though. There's a lot of infighting between the, I want to be king, no, I want to be king kind of thing. So, but he went out, and he had to kill some people to do it. So, yeah, so if we look at that, we can also see a lot of archaeological evidence, kind of the kingdom of Dalerodai, and we can see in your books different animal figures and crosses, the Celtic crosses kind of thing with the embroidery on it, made through stoneworks, and we got the iron stuff that survived, and we got these typical temples. And so the Catholic Church actually set up, the church itself actually set up these Scottish the cities. That's why it was so flourished, because they were learning in the church, and they built these cathedrals, and so people wanted to go to church, so they built their towns around it, and the towns flourished and became a kind of a boom town, capitals and stuff like that. And that is kind of how it went on. So this is the first week. Again, this is Professor Ryan Evans for Columbia College. We're going to start this journey, and we're going to learn a lot about Scotland, and then we're going to go to Scotland, and we're going to see everything. It's going to be awesome. I don't know if you've been on any of these study abroads, but there's a handful of us professors, and we kind of mingle with you guys, and we kind of enjoy it as well. I mean, if you just have questions, you just ask questions, but most of the learning is done here. You guys got to listen to my voice for a while. So, and then you guys take tests, and you guys take the quizzes, and it's very straightforward. I'm going to try to experiment and see if I can get some YouTube videos going on, so you guys should see my face, but I don't know. This might be easier too, because it's an MP4 format, so you can play it on your iPhones, or you can play it on your Androids, and you can listen to it in the car, or you can listen to it at home. I don't really care. Just, listen to them and take notes, and that way you'll be in good point for the test. So I don't know how many of you have taken my classes before, but I am a kind of professor that does not really care too much about dates. So like all that dates I've been slamming at you, like 700, 450. Don't even try to remember those. I mean, it's not important. What is important, exactly, is, if you want to listen up, is going to be on the test, is going to be like geography stuff, and who are the Picts? Who are these people? Who are the Scots? What major events kind of happened? Why was it important? Why did the Romans abandon the wall? Kind of things like that. So when I'm talking or have a slide that focuses on things and breaks things down, you might want to take notes, because I can guarantee you a lot of that stuff's going to be on the test. So, so let's just talk about the class just a little bit, and how it's broken down here. You can reach me at any time. I actually have my Washington State phone number on there, so feel free to call 425-445-6101. I'll try to get back to you as quickly as possible if I can. Office hours, obviously. This is online course, so my office hours is in my apartment at home in Renton, Washington. So I don't know if you guys want to come play racquetball, that's fine with me, but I don't really have an office hours. So but my email will be rtevans@cougars.ccis.edu. I check it pretty regularly. If you guys have any questions, we're going to have discussion boards on the website here, and as we can see, if you look at the breakdown, so Unit 1 is what we just did. The Roman incursions, the rise of Kingdom of Alba, Norman influence, and Davidian Revolution. That's what I just covered in this 30-minute lecture here. So we're going to get some discussions going on about that, what do you guys think, and kind of bounce things back and forth, hopefully. So I said the SCA. You can see that is one of your books. SCA, yeah. Scotland Concise History. So whenever it says SCA, you read pages 9 through 36. So when I say the WW, that stands for William Wallace, read pages 13 through 42. And for you overachievers who got the other book, How Scots Invented the Modern World, so it's Mike Whiskey, MW, is 138. 1 through 38, so... And then, okay, this is a big thing. I am required by the Columbia College Board of Directors to make you guys read primary sources. I'm a big fan of this. Primary sources is how I teach history. It's my history craft as a professional historian. So, you too are going to be doing primary sources. So as you can look on there, there's a hyperlink. JSTOR is a database. So you just click on that, and you're going to read about from Anne Ritchie, the Scottish Historical Review, Volume 66, number 181, Part 1. It was published in 1987 on page 63. So you don't have to worry about all that. Just click the link, read it, write some comments so I know that you've read it in the discussion posts. So percentage of your grade is partly under precipitation.
Participation, sorry. How much participation are you asking, huh? Well, you get 100 points for the entire course. So it's pretty darn important for your discussion post. So that means you read the primary source, you post some questions, or post some comments, or post some rants, or whatever, get some dialogue going, and then other students will do that, and we'll kind of popcorn off of that. And then I'll come in the discussions, and I'll add some stuff, and correct people that are off base, and put them back on track, and congratulate people that are doing good, give you some feedback. So that's how we're going to run it. I am very excited to be teaching this course for you guys. Scottish history, I haven't really dealt too much in English and Scottish history, so the last 6 months I've been studying and becoming an expert on Scottish history so I can bring it on to you guys. I've read probably about 40 books on Scotland right now, and so I just whittled down that to 2 or maybe 3 for you overachievers, and that's what we got. So this concludes the first lesson for Scottish history history 277 for Scottish history, Quest for Freedom for Columbia College. I'm on the main. This is a global campus, but the main campus is, as you know, Columbia, Missouri, and I am a professor at the Marysville, Everett campus, the Naval Station Everett Naval Station, Naval Support Station, Marysville. So, for my Marysville students, you guys have seen me around. I do encourage you to take my other classes. I've been teaching World War II for 5 years, and I have been teaching 20th century Europe for 5 years. And I hope to be doing Renaissance history and all the different kind of things in 20th century, 19th century, history of Russia, history 101, and history 110, things like that in the future. So that's what you have to look forward to. And so you guys get to hear me yak for the next 8 weeks, and I get to see your guys' growth, and we'll learn about Scotland together. Okay, this is Professor Ryan Evans, and I hope you guys have a good night.